The Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, says municipalities should continue working around the clock to ensure water provision in both urban and rural areas of the province. This comes as the department concluded its three-day visit in the Eastern Cape. The department says this is part of ongoing and concerted efforts to find solutions to the challenges faced by various municipalities in the province of water and sanitation services to communities they serve. Lwando Nomoyi compiled this report.
Senzo Mchunu is in the province assessing and meeting with different stakeholders on the water situation in the province. But let's bring him into discussion now. Minister, thank you very much for your time. Let's just speak in terms of the response that you've been getting from officials as you made your visit to the province today.
Yes, we are happy that we are at the conclusion of our three-day engagement with different municipalities, one after the other, as we did. We covered all water service authorities in the Eastern Cape. Our focus was on SDG 6, that is ensuring that everybody accesses water in South Africa, but for now in the Eastern Cape. So what we were checking where each of the water services authorities are on that issue, checking the deficit, checking their plans to close the deficit, checking their funding and all of that. But secondly, we're checking water quality after the release of the drops and the measures that they've taken to improve that, and indeed it's a worrying issue. But we're also checking current projects and the impact they will have in closing the deficit, and completed projects, those that have just been completed and are going to be completed very soon. In some cases, those that are going to be completed in June, we want them completed in May, and so on. So checking availability of funding and where we have to patch up and so on. Now, problems range from really very small problems. Let me take an example of a number of municipalities, if not all of them, in South Africa. They don't have big issues. They would tell you that the deficit to meet the demand currently is 1.1 megaliter. In some cases, 3 megaliters, and so on. So we said we're going to collate, put together everything, analyze, and come back on the 23rd of April. There we are coming with a solid plan. They will hear from us as the Department of Water and Sanitation, because we listened to them today and they were putting all these things. And we think that we can treat them as a collective and resolve their problems. But there are bigger problems in OR, in Nelson, in Alfred Nzo, for instance. But there, nothing insurmountable. We've started already working on those. That includes allocating new funding, additional funding, because we see that if we can close some minor gaps even there, because they have a number of projects that are currently underway, but with a threat here and there of lack of funding. But in some cases, it's workmanship, it's people that we hire that don't complete this and that. And for instance, in Amatola, we found that a major project had stopped for more than a month. And we're happy that it took us less than an hour to resolve that. And we said on Wednesday in the morning, there will be somebody waiting on the site to make sure that they are there to work, not to visit, to work. And so it is such things that make us feel that we almost have to be managerial as water and sanitation from national on this, and not rely on water service authorities, not because we don't trust them, but because not only must we trust them, but we must be seen to be translating that trust into actual action that delivers to the people. Because some of the things that are happening there are by and large not because there's no money, but it is because we're not managing things tightly as we want to do now. In Nelson Mandela, we've just come out of a a very threatening period of 7.5 years of drought. We've overcome it. Mayor is happy. We're all happy that they haven't dropped the ball. But we are cautioning each other that let's not lift the foot from the pedal. Let's stay there. Things that they are doing are fine, but we still have to deal with a number of aspects just to make sure that we don't revert. Among other things that we said they must consider is a joint conference, international conference in Nelson Mandela, just to deal with drought, deal with desal, deal with other preventative measures, so that we don't really go back, but we have measures at hand that will make sure that we don't go back to the same experience in future.
Just speaking in terms of the issue of the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro, we've heard the cry from residents in terms of the water tariffs that were increased and the restrictions that were imposed. Are there discussions in terms of easing these restrictions for these residents?
Well, restrictions can't go, especially in a city like this one, where we're not really out of the woods. So they can be relaxed as per advice, scientifically, determined scientifically. You can't just say, because they were imposed not at will, but it was because of the situation, and therefore, in principle, they can be looking at them and as per calculations and relax them. Now, on tariffs, we are reviewing tariffs throughout the country. We are close to introducing a 3-year cycle for tariffs in the country. DWS, boards, municipalities, and all of us. Of course, we're talking. This is already work that is ongoing, and we're hoping that at some point we will conclude. Even SALCA is part of it, COGTA is part of it, because we want to stabilize tariffs so that any investor, any South African, all the businesses know exactly what is the procedure, what is the procedure and policy on our tariffs in a stable way, so that you can budget ahead, as opposed to the kind of situation that's happening at the moment.
Just lastly, Minister, let's go to the issue of the projects that are supposed to be implemented, especially projects that are given to contractors in the province. How are we clamping down, ensuring accountability in terms of people to complete their allocated projects?
In one of the municipalities, what we're finding is that they have a list of professional people having been appointed. That is those who are called PSPs, consultants, if you like. But they haven't appointed contractors, and there's a disjuncture there in terms of how you run your dispensation, in terms of your supply chain management and your appointments. Where you appoint a PSP, you need to appoint and it doesn't have to have a time lapse. So we see a weakness there. But in some cases, we are saying, when you appoint people, you've got to closely manage them, so that there is a full accountability on the money allocated, on the time frame, but on the quality of workmanship there. Because, as you say, people have been waiting for water for quite a long time, and therefore it concerns us that there are things like holding projects from being completed, and they remain incomplete. But what I can say in conclusion is that we're quite happy when we look at current projects, just completed projects, when you look at the impact they will have in cutting the deficit downwards in terms of people who are not yet receiving water services in their homes. That, we don't doubt, is going to be cut. And that's why we want to put more emphasis on managing these projects so that they get completed, so that we then get the benefit of reduced deficits as opposed to what they are at the moment.
Are we putting the same emphasis on sanitation, Minister?
We are putting a lot of strength or emphasis on sanitation, but remember, sanitation requires water. By and large, and therefore we are putting emphasis especially on the ugly side, like where sanitation is actually very ugly, like where they are using buckets and so on, and no sanitation. But we are pushing more on provision of water, because we know once there is water, it will be easy to then turn the screws on the other one, on sanitation. It will be much easier than when you don't have water in an area.
Thank you very much for your time, Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Minister of Water and Sanitation, Senzo Mchunu, just briefly elaborating on his 3-day visit to the province.